She could not keep a man, but she sure knows how to write a check. The microphone feedback hissed across the country club ballroom. 200 guests erupted into thunderous laughter. Up at the head table, my mother, Catherine, wore a perfectly rehearsed, diamond-sharp smile. She scanned the crowd, soaking in the validation from her wealthy country club peers. My brother Marcus nudged his new bride, Vanessa, and they both giggled behind their crystal champagne flutes. My mother needed this moment. She needed to publicly diminish my authentic success just to prop up her own fraudulent, debt-ridden life. I sat trapped at table 24, wedged right next to the swinging kitchen doors. My throat burned. I swallowed the sharp lump of humiliation and gripped the edge of the linen tablecloth. I stood up. I smoothed the wrinkles out of my silk dress and caught my mother's eye across the room. I offered a slow, deliberate nod. I was about to agree with her completely. Right before I pulled the financial pin out of the grenade, to understand the absolute cruelty of that toast, you have to look at the secret buried beneath the floral arrangements and the premium open bar. 4 months earlier, this wedding was entirely bankrupt. Catherine had taken the original $145,000 wedding fund and secretly funneled it into a fake luxury real estate syndicate. She wanted to brag to her tennis club friends about being a high-level investor. Instead, she lost every single penny. Marcus called me in hysterics, threatening to cancel the wedding. Vanessa was inconsolable. The family was facing total social ruin in Charlotte. I serve as a high school vice principal. I manage CREs, soothe entitled egos, and fix broken systems every single day. I applied that same administrative efficiency to my family. I went to the bank, signed the paperwork, and drained my hard-earned home equity line of credit to save them. I bailed out the wedding. I took over the venue contract. I did not do it for applause or a parade. I did it because I mistakenly believed that family protected each other from the ledge. My sacrifice did not buy love. It bought an invoice, and it bought my immediate erasure. Once the checks cleared, my presence became an inconvenience. The escalating disrespect started small. I was left off the official family group chat for the wedding planning. When the invitations finally went out, mine arrived 3 weeks late. My name was misspelled. The envelope designated me as the logistics supervisor rather than the sister of the groom. I was expected to pay silently, sit in the shadows, and allow Catherine to play the wealthy. Generous matriarch, the rehearsal dinner shattered any lingering delusions I held about my place in their lives. I arrived wearing a tailored navy dress I had saved up to buy for the occasion. The photographer began arranging the family near the fireplace. I stepped forward, only to watch Vanessa pull the photographer aside. She whispered frantically, pointing in my direction. The photographer looked incredibly uncomfortable. Vanessa explicitly banned me from the official family portraits because my outfit did not match the bridal aesthetic. Catherine materialized right behind me, placing a manicured hand on my shoulder. She smiled tightly. Offering a patronizing pat, she told me to wait by the bar, assuring me I hated taking pictures anyway. I clamped my jaw shut and walked away. Later that evening, I walked upstairs to the bridal suite to drop off the vendor tip envelopes. The heavy oak door was cracked open just an inch. Catherine and Vanessa were inside, giggling hysterically while sipping Prosecco. They were practicing Catherine's upcoming reception toast. Catherine explicitly planned the joke about my recent divorce. She wanted to use my failed marriage as a punchline to make Vanessa look superior by comparison. They laughed, entirely confident that I would just sit there and take the abuse. They assumed the walking wallet lacked a spine. Listening to them laugh through that cracked door, the final piece of the puzzle locked into place, I finally understood the entitlement echo. They did not just take my money, they actively resented me for having it. My financial capability, built on years of grueling work in education, was a glaring, blinding reminder of their own failures. Marcus was drowning in credit card debt. Catherine was a social climber hiding behind a mountain of unpaid bills. My mere existence made them feel inferior. So they punished me for saving them. The sadness evaporated from my chest, replaced by a cold. Surgical calculation. I stopped being the sad, neglected sister. I became the administrator. The morning of the wedding, I requested a private emergency meeting with Mr. Sterling, the strict by-the-books manager of the country club. We sat in his oak-paneled office. I slid my driver's license and the original venue contract across his polished desk. I established my identity as the sole financial backer of the event. Then, I officially revoked my credit card authorizations. I canceled the final $70,000 wire transfer scheduled for 3 o'clock that afternoon. Mr. Sterling went rigid. His face drained of color. He explained that without the final balance, the venue could not legally serve the main courses or open the premium bar. I maintained complete eye contact. I calmly informed him that any further charges must be billed directly to Catherine and Marcus, and that my financial involvement was permanently terminated. I walked out of his office, completely serene. That brings us back to the reception. The fairy lights glowed. The champagne flowed. I sat at table 24, sipping tap water, watching Mr. Sterling pace nervously near the kitchen doors with a clipboard clutched to his chest. He was waiting for the $70,000 balance. I let them enjoy the illusion of a funded wedding for exactly 1 hour. Catherine delivered the punchline. The room laughed. I stood up, walked calmly across the dance floor, and approached the head table. The DJ looked utterly confused, but I reached out and took the microphone directly from his hand. The laughter died down into a confused, heavy silence. I looked directly into my mother's eyes. Then I looked at the crowd. She is entirely right. I said, my voice echoing off the vaulted ceiling, I could not save my marriage, but I did save this wedding. Unfortunately, as of 3 o'clock this afternoon, my generosity expired. The $145,000 that made this entire night possible is officially frozen. I lowered the microphone. I turned my head and gave Mr. Sterling a single node. The collapse was instantaneous. Mr. Sterling snapped his fingers. The bartenders immediately pulled the heavy metal shutters down over the premium open bar. A small army of waitstaff marched out of the kitchen doors, walking directly to the guest tables. They physically pulled the half-eaten plates of prime rib away from the stunned guests. Gasps ripped through the ballroom. Catherine went ghostly pale, clutching the edge of the table to keep from collapsing. Marcus and Vanessa jumped up in total humiliation. Their faces flushed crimson. As Mr. Sterling marched right up to the head table, he loudly demanded a new credit card to cover the $70,000 deficit. The illusion shattered in front of 200 of Charlotte's most elite gossips. I set the microphone down on the white linen tablecloth, turned my back on the screaming and the chaos, and walked out into the warm Carolina night. A month passed. The dust seemed to settle. Catherine became a total social pariah in her country club circle. The embarrassment was absolute. I assumed the war was over. I applied to refinance my home, hoping to recover some of my depleted savings and rebuild my life. My mortgage broker called me on a Tuesday morning. The application was denied. A predatory $30,000 personal loan had been taken out in my name just weeks prior. My credit was destroyed. I sat at my desk in the high school administrative office, staring at the wall. Catherine had not surrendered. She had intercepted a physical, pre-approved loan mailer sent to my old address. She used a burner phone for the digital verification and routed the $30,000 into a forgotten joint checking account from my college days. She used my stolen identity to pay off the Furious Country Club. My phone buzzed. It was Catherine. She did not call to apologize. She called to counterattack. Her voice dripped with manipulative, sickeningly sweet confidence. You would not send your own mother to jail over some paperwork. Sweetheart. She cooed through the speaker. We are family. You make good money. Just pay off the loan. Do not make this a tragedy. She believed she had me checkmated. She relied on the classic toxic family dynamic, assuming the emotional blackmail of family loyalty would force me into compliance. She thought I would scream, cry, and eventually write another check to avoid putting my own mother behind bars. I did not argue. I did not raise my voice. I hung up the phone. I bypassed all family drama and followed the absolute letter of the law. I drove directly to the local police precinct. I sat in a sterile interview room and filed a formal identity theft report. I provided my teaching schedule, creating an ironclad alibi against the electronic signature timestamp. I took that official police case number and drove straight to the bank's fraud department. I sat across from an investigator and signed a sworn affidavit of forgery. I stepped out into the bank parking lot, the sun warming my face. I pulled out my phone and sent Catherine one final text message. I am not sending you to jail. The federal bank fraud investigators are sending you to jail. And I have absolutely no legal power to stop them. I shifted the victimhood. I was no longer the aggrieved daughter arguing with her mother. I was a civilian who reported a crime to a federally insured institution. I stripped Catherine of all her emotional leverage. The consequences arrived like an avalanche. Mr. Sterling, still furious over the breach of contract and the delayed payments, unleashed the venue's corporate lawyers. They placed a massive mechanics lien on Marcus and Vanessa's new marital home, utterly destroying their credit before their honeymoon even concluded. Catherine's desperate gamble triggered an unstoppable federal wire fraud investigation. She faces imminent indictment, potential prison time, and the complete, irreversible destruction of her life in Charlotte. I blocked their numbers. I closed my front door. I breathed freely for the first time in my entire adult life. When you spend your entire life operating as the family infrastructure, people forget that you are a human being. They treat you like a load-bearing wall. They hang their mistakes on you. They lean their debts against you. And they get incredibly angry when you finally decide to step out of the way and let the roof collapse. Toxic families do not view your kindness as a gift. They view it as a utility. And when you finally shut off the water, they will stand in the dry dirt and call you selfish. Through the betrayal, the stolen money, and the breathtaking cruelty, I learned 3 life rules that I will carry with me until my last breath. Rule number 1, blood does not make you family, respect does. Society programs us to believe that sharing DNA gives someone a lifelong, all-access VIP pass to disrespect you. We are told to forgive the unforgivable simply because the person hurting us shares a last name. That is a lie designed to keep victims trapped. You are completely allowed to fire your family. You are allowed to revoke their access to your peace. If a stranger treated you the way your toxic relatives do, You would call the police. Stop giving abusers a discount just because you share a bloodline. Rule number 2, do not set yourself on fire to keep ungrateful people warm. I drained my home equity because I thought my sacrifice would cure their narcissism. I thought if I just gave enough, fixed enough, and bled enough, they would finally love me. But sacrifice does not cure narcissism. It only feeds it. When you constantly bail people out of their own catastrophic mistakes, you rob them of the consequences they desperately need to grow. You become an enabler of your own abuse. Rule number 3, true power is administrative, not emotional. Toxic people thrive on your emotional reactions. They want you to scream, to cry, and to send long, angry text messages. They want you to act out so they can point their fingers and label you the crazy one. When you remove your emotions and apply cold, administrative boundaries, you strip them of their only weapon. Canceling a wire transfer, signing a legal affidavit, filing a police report. These are facts. Facts do not care about family guilt. Facts do not care about country club reputations. When you fight manipulators with paperwork instead of tears, you win every single time. Take a long, hard look at the people you are bending over backwards to help right now. The people you are financing, the people you are constantly apologizing for. If you stopped paying, stopped fixing, and stopped apologizing tomorrow, would they still have a seat for you at their table? Or would you suddenly become the villain in their story? If the answer is no, it is time to stop buying your own mistreatment. It is time to let the venue pull the plates away. It is time to build your own table with people who value your presence, not just your wallet. Share this if you are ready to stop writing checks for people who do not know your worth. I know exactly what you are screaming at the screen right now. You are sitting there thinking, why on earth did she drain her home equity line to pay $145,000 for a wedding that was not even hers? Why didn't she just say no from the very beginning? It is incredibly easy to judge from the outside. But what you just watched is a textbook example of intermittent reinforcement, or what psychologists call the slot machine effect. When you grow up in a toxic family system, they do not treat you horribly 100% of the time. If they did, you would simply walk away. Instead, they give you tiny, unpredictable crumbs of hope, a fake smile, a rare compliment, a brief moment where you actually feel included. You keep pulling the lever, emptying your pockets, and sacrificing your own stability, hoping that this time the jackpot is real love and acceptance. Paige was not stupid, and she was not weak. She was simply addicted to the illusion of a family she never actually had. But let us look at the absolute masterclass in self-defense she delivered when that illusion finally shattered. First, she used what I call the audit strategy. Manipulators and toxic people thrive in the shadows of emotion. They want you to yell so they can call you crazy. They hate paper trails and hard boundaries. Paige bypassed the emotional screaming match entirely. She went straight to the country club manager and officially revoked her credit card authorization. She did not argue with her mother. She argued with the contract. Second, she practiced flawless case building. When she discovered that fraudulent $30,000 loan, she did not call her mother to complain or demand an apology. She went straight to the police precinct. She established an ironclad alibi with her teaching schedule. Then she walked into the bank and signed a sworn affidavit of forgery. This is the ultimate street smart move. She took the emotional target off her own back and legally transferred the victimhood to a federally insured institution. She let the federal investigators and the corporate lawyers do the heavy lifting. Finally, she executed the ultimate buyout. Paige realized that closing the door on toxic people is an investment in your own freedom. You do not owe anyone your financial security, not even the people who raised you. 6 months later, the country club ballroom looked completely different in my memory. It no longer felt like the place where my mother humiliated me. It felt like a crime scene where the evidence had finally spoken louder than the performance. Catherine's indictment did not arrive with dramatic music or flashing cameras. It arrived in a plain envelope, delivered to her townhouse on a rainy Thursday morning. But in Charlotte, humiliation travels faster than any siren. By noon, everyone knew. By dinner, the same women who once laughed at my divorce joke were whispering behind linen napkins about forged signatures, bank fraud, and a mother who had stolen from her own daughter to save face. Marcus called me from an unknown number 3 times that night. I let every call go to voicemail. The first message was angry. He said I had destroyed the family. The second was desperate. He said Vanessa was talking about separation because their credit was ruined and the lien on the house had made them untouchable to every lender in the city. The third message was quiet, almost broken. Paige, please. Mom says, if you just tell them it was a misunderstanding, maybe this can still go away. I listened once. Then I deleted it. That was the moment I realized I was finally free. Not because they stopped needing me. They still needed me desperately. Not because they suddenly respected me. They did not. I was free because their need no longer felt like my emergency. For years, I had confused guilt with responsibility. I thought every panic call required my rescue. I thought every crisis with my last name attached to it automatically belonged on my shoulders. But that is how toxic families survive. They hand you a burning house and then call you cruel when you refuse to sleep inside it. The trial took almost a year. Catherine wore pearls to every hearing, as if looking polished could bleach the crime out of the documents. She cried at exactly the right moments. She told the judge she was under pressure, that the wedding disaster had embarrassed her, that she never meant to hurt anyone. She even looked across the courtroom at me with trembling eyes, waiting for the old version of me to appear. The daughter who would soften, the daughter who would protect her, the daughter who would confuse pity for love. That daughter was gone. When the prosecutor asked for my statement, I stood up slowly. My hands did not shake. My voice did not crack. I told the court that the stolen $30,000 hurt, but it was not the worst part. The worst part was realizing my mother knew exactly which wounds to press because she had created most of them herself. I told them about the wedding, about the joke, about the home equity line I drained because I believed family meant rescue, about the phone call where she asked me to pay for the crime she committed against me. Then I looked directly at Catherine and said the sentence I had waited my entire life to say. I am no longer available for use. The courtroom went completely still. Catherine dropped her eyes first. She received a sentence that included restitution, probation, mandatory financial monitoring, and community service. It was not the dramatic prison scene Marcus had warned me about. It was something far more humiliating for a woman like Catherine. She lost control of the story. She lost the ability to perform respectability. She lost access to the rooms where reputation mattered more than truth. Marcus and Vanessa sold their house at a loss. Their marriage limped forward for a while, then collapsed under the weight of blame. Of course, they blamed me. People who build their lives on someone else's sacrifice will always call you cruel when you remove the foundation. As for me, I rebuilt slowly. I rented a smaller apartment. I packed away the silk dress from the wedding and donated it without ceremony. I spent Friday nights eating takeout on my couch, not waiting for anyone to invite me somewhere I had already paid to exist. I started therapy. I repaired my credit. I opened a new savings account and named it Peace. The first time I deposited money into it, I cried in the bank parking lot. Not because the amount was large, it was only $200. I cried because, for once, my money was going toward my future instead of someone else's illusion. A year after the wedding, Mr. Sterling mailed me a note. Inside was a copy of the original event invoice, stamped closed. At the bottom, he had written one sentence by hand. Some balances are not financial. I kept that note in my desk drawer at school. Now, when students come into my office carrying shame that does not belong to them, I recognize it immediately. The girl apologizing for her father's temper. The boy protecting a mother who never protects him. The quiet ones who think love means being useful. I do not tell them my whole story, but I tell them the truth I wish someone had told me when I was younger. Being needed is not the same as being loved. Read that again. Being needed is not the same as being loved. Some people do not miss your heart when you leave. They miss your labor, your money, your silence, your willingness to absorb the consequences of choices they made proudly until the bill arrived. And when you finally stop rescuing them, they will accuse you of betrayal because your boundaries expose their dependence. Let them talk. Let them rewrite the story. Let them gather at whatever table they can still afford and call you selfish. You do not owe your abusers a softer landing. You owe yourself a life that does not require constant recovery. The lesson here is simple. True power is administrative, not emotional. The next time someone tries to manipulate you using family loyalty, remember this story. Facts do not care about guilt trips. If someone only values you when your wallet is open, that is not a family. That is a transaction, and you have every right to cancel your subscription. Have you ever had to financially cut off a toxic friend or relative? How did you finally break free? Let me know your story down in the comments. Hit that subscribe button for more deep dives into the psychology of survival, and I will see you in the next video.